All right, here we go. And I've been going for the last 45 minutes meeting some amazing presenters all the way down in Utah. And for them, they're just catching up to us here in Boston. They're 2 hours behind. But let me tell you, it has been inspiring over the last 2 weeks getting to meet some of the amazing educators from Utah and some of the presenters outside of Utah, all converging on this great event coming up in about 8 days. And I'm really excited to have our next guest come in because some of the work that he is doing is bringing students to the event. So I cannot wait to hear that. So I want to welcome in Ryan to the podcast, Stronger Together. How are you tonight, Ryan?
I'm great. Great, Matthew. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Now, is that your real background?
This is 100% my real background, and I'm going to acknowledge there's a little bit of vanity, but I have had a dream my whole life to have a room that has floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and I'm not there yet, but I love setting these bookcases up behind my camera for Zoom calls for exactly that reaction that I got from you.
Absolutely, because as we went through COVID, obviously, and now doing a lot more video, you see these backgrounds with books and elaborate things. And I'm like, I'm not going to ask him off air. I'm going to ask him on live and see what he says. So that is awesome. So for those who don't know your work, share a little bit about your journey in education and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So as far as my journey in education, I'm in my it's hard for me to remember 13th year as an educator right now. And for most of my career, I was an English teacher. I started off in 7th grade and then moved up into high school. And then near the end of my time at the high school, I worked as an instructional coach. And I also had the opportunity last year to work as, it's called a teacher on special assignment. It's like a temporary administrative position. Yeah. And then this year, I actually moved to a new school. It's called Career Tech High School. And it's what most people in the country would refer to as a magnet school. It's centered around students that can choose one of 8 career pathways to pursue. So they still have to take all of their, their core classes, their English, math, science, social studies, but all of their electives are tied to a career pathway. And we have 8 pathways that students can choose. And one of those pathways is teaching as a profession. And so I have about 53 students that are in my pathway that have identified a desire to become either, and there's kind of two branches of my pathway. There's the early childhood education side, and my classroom is attached to a preschool. And so my students that are interested in learning about early childhood ed they spend one of their periods working in the preschool. And then the other side of it is the K through 12 teaching as a profession. And so my students learn about, pedagogical techniques, instructional strategies to become teachers. And it's been a lot of work building this first year. It's a one-of-a-kind school in Utah. There are schools like this in other parts of the country, but it's the first one in Utah that has everything housed in one location. There are other schools that have the pathways but don't have the core classes. But it's been interesting to teach students about instructional strategies and have them recognize those very strategies that I'm using with them as I'm teaching that.
Awesome. And if you want to learn more about that, make sure to follow Ryan right here at his handle. Go on there. You can see all the great things that he's doing. There's some links to the school that he's in, and you'll be able to see over the next week during the event, the work that you're doing with some of your students. And the first 2 sessions you have, one on Tuesday and one on Wednesday, you're not talking about it, you're bringing the future educators of Utah. So share a little bit about that session, because it's very different from what I've heard about so far.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm kind of a person. I'm an ideas guy. I love getting ideas and then saying can we do this? And then why can't we do it? And then let's try it and see how it goes. And so I actually contacted Matthew Winters, the president of USET, and I said, hey, I would love to bring students. I said, I would love for them to see teachers going to a conference, working to improve their practice. My students see teachers every day in the classroom. They're not seeing students in these other settings. And I said, and I'd also love to share with the teachers the things that my students are doing. And so in pretty much every session that I'm doing, I'm going to have students involved. But the first one that you're mentioning, it's a poster presentation. So in the area of the conference, there will be, you know, a lot of different people that have posters set up, but I'll have groups of students that are there to talk to teachers and to kind of share what our school's about, what they're learning, and why they want to become teachers. And for me,
Sure.
I felt like it would be pretty invigorating as a teacher to interact with a student who's excited to enter into the field. And
Absolutely. We need more of that for sure.
yeah, and remind me of why I went into this and why I decided to do this. So that's kind of that. Is they're going to be they have a display with our school and some of our goals and our mission and things like that. But then also the students will just be there to chat with anybody that wants to stop by and talk about teaching as a profession.
And that's amazing. How do you recruit students for that, or when they're just jumping in?
Yeah. So our school is a 9 through 12, and without trying to get too far into the weeds, in Washington County where I'm at, which, by the way, so I am in Utah, but I'm down in St. George, Utah, which, if the geography wise, if you've heard of Zion National Park, I'm right next to that. I'm about 4.5 hours south of Salt Lake City. I'm actually much closer to Las Vegas than I am to Salt Lake City. We're about 2 hours from Las Vegas, but so in most of our high schools in this district are 10 through 12, but my school is a 9 through 12 school. And so the way that we recruited is we this first year, we just asked students, we said, hey, if you're interested in pursuing this career, apply. And they had to record like a video and say why they wanted to come and things like that. But one of the other things that we're doing is we have some programs, like we use a program called U Science, where students take some diagnostic assessments, and it gives them a report on their interests and their aptitudes. It says, you know, based on this exam, you seem to be interested in this and you have a high aptitude for this. And so that becomes a little bit of a recruiting tool for us as well, when students see what they're in, like, oh, like this career would be a good fit for my interests and aptitudes. And so then they apply. But I'm also talking about being an ideas guy. I don't want to just passively recruit and have kids apply. Like, I'm looking to go out into the community. One of my goals is we need more teachers of color. Our community, our demographics are shifting. We have more people of color that are moving into our community, and we would love to have people from those demographics enter into the profession as teachers and become teachers, especially teachers of all content areas. Many times in our schools, like, our Hispanic teachers often teach Spanish, and I would love to see those Hispanic people teach math and English and science. And so that's going to be future years from now, but we're going to recruit, we're going to go out into the community and recruit people to send kids to us to become teachers.
No, and when we hear a lot, and in my role in central office as superintendent, we hear a lot about shortages and teacher shortages, or not having enough teachers for the classroom. So I think that's amazing, and you'll be bringing them. So make sure to check that out. Happening twice at the poster session. Hear all about the future of Utah educators, and you're also going to be doing a podcast there. So tell us a little bit about the Teacher Fellow podcast.
Yeah, so I belong, and I think a lot of the other people that you've talked to on the Stronger Together live sessions have been members or former members of an organization called the Teacher Fellows, and it's an organization based around building teacher capacity and increasing teacher leadership opportunities. And so I host a podcast with my friend and colleague. Her name is Lauren Merkley, and I think somebody else that you've had on this podcast, Kayla Towner, is our producer.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
our goal for that podcast is to interview teachers and teacher leaders across the state about things in which they are experts, and they can demonstrate their expertise, and they can also teach us a little bit about it. But then we can also get a little bit into their story and like things that they choose to do. And so at this USET conference, we brainstormed with the idea of having a live session. We've never really done a live podcast before. We've always done
awesome.
Pre-arranged meetings. And then we expanded it, and we were like, hey, we've had teachers and teacher leaders, but I'm going to have some of my students up there. I'd love for them to come on and share about their kind of what we've talked about already, their experience of joining the program, but also just like their experience at USET. Like, what have they learned? Who have they talked to? What are some things they're excited to try when they become teachers themselves?
That's awesome. So one of the things, so you heard Ryan talk about that. Make sure to follow him if you want to check out the podcast. Here is the link below. Go on to teacherfellows.org/podcast. You'll see all the episodes. There's a lot of them up there, and hearing about, especially after the event, you're going to be hearing about everything that they learned. And not that I'm telling you what to put on your podcast. I can just listen to you and hear, like, that's the direction you're going. I'm really excited to do that. And speaking about learning, what is something you hope to learn from this event?
So first, I think something that's big across the board is like anything that has to do with AI. I love learning about that stuff and going to sessions that illustrate something that I wasn't previously aware of. It's like one of those concepts of like, we don't know what we don't know. So one of the things that I love doing is looking at these sessions and finding something about which I have no idea and then attending it. So I guess I don't really have a specific answer for you, but like the way that I approach conferences or meetings is I call them like 10-second takeaways.
I like that.
Sometimes, you're in a faculty or whatever, and a teacher's like, man, I would way rather be working in my classroom than at this faculty meeting. And one time I had a leader tell me, like, how much time would you be willing to dedicate for 10 seconds of truth? And I was like, I don't know. And it's like 10 seconds of truth can change. So it's an hour is a small price to pay. And so it changed my mindset from, having like maybe like a complainer or like this is a waste of time mindset in any meeting that I was in, to now I started hunting for these 10-second takeaways. And what I found is, as I started hunting, I never found just one. After I found one, then I hunted for the next one. And so I guess that's what I'm looking forward to, is at each session that I attend, I want to find some 10-second takeaways. And this is also going to be like a task that I assign my students, is ask them to find a 10-second takeaway. But what I'm the most excited about is having a conversation at the end. What were our 10-second takeaways? And then figuring out what we learned.
I like it. That's awesome. And, everything you've talked about today, from the teacher fellows, the podcast, working with students, collaborating in your new school, recruiting, all talks around collaboration. So last question I always ask our guests as they come on, and what does Stronger Together mean to you?
Yeah. So, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit before, but when I was thinking about this concept of Stronger Together, I was an athletic coach for a long time too. And there was another phrase. It was like, teamwork makes the dream work, right? Like, we are together, we are much greater than the sum of our parts. We can go much further together than we can ever go individually. But even more with that, like, especially, and I mean, I know it varies from state to state what the challenges are, but you mentioned, we have things like teacher shortages going on, but also like, we're the only profession in the world that gets our future employees in front of us for 12 years.
Right.
And I think it's like, why we should be recruiting. And we have this idea that, like, teaching can be a challenging profession, and there's things that are struggles, but the way we're going to solve those is if we get the best people doing the job. And so when I started thinking about Stronger Together as it relates to some of the things that I'm working on, that's what I thought of as like teachers and students working together, not in separate roles, but towards a common goal. And so I think sometimes, and I was guilty of this myself, like, as a teacher, I used to think that I was, imparting knowledge on my students. And now I feel much more like it's a collaborative effort. We're working together to solve things, because the world that my students are going to enter is not the world that I'm in right now. It's going to be very different, right? And so I think as we work together, I can learn as much from the students as they can learn from me. And then together, that mutual knowledge will prepare us for whatever the next challenge is that we encounter. So kind of a long-winded response, but to me, Stronger Together means
that's great.
Everybody on the team.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking some time for us tonight, jumping on. Follow Rick at coach_RARICK, and make sure to check that out. If you want to have an opportunity to check out the podcast, go to teacherfellows.org podcast/podcast. And of course, make sure to check all the sessions out from Ryan. At Tuesday, he's got the poster session with his students, and then on Wednesday he has another poster session, podcasting, teaching on purpose, and philosophy and purpose. So many things going on, and you had said your students are involved in all of that. So Ryan, it's great to meet you virtually, and I look forward to seeing you and stopping by the poster session. I just checked it off on my schedule to make sure to meet the future educators of Utah.
Awesome. Can't wait to see you there.
All right, we'll talk soon, and I'll see you in under a little over a week. And
Okay.
for all of
See
you,
you. Thanks for having me.
you got it. For all of you who've been watching along the way, we have 2 more interviews tomorrow, another one on Tuesday, and a couple people have been reaching out, so you never know what's going to happen. Continue to tune in, watch back to get excited for the event happening in just over a week. Really excited. Ryan, we'll see you in a little bit. Have a good night.
Bye.